All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Tort. I am the Associate Director for the Office of Professional Practice, and I am in charge of the GEARE program at Purdue University. Tonight, we're going to take this time to do a little bit of an info session to the GEARE program. Welcome to all of those who are accepted and admitted to Purdue. Congratulations on that. And to those of you who are thinking about coming to Purdue, we hope that you will. We believe that the GEARE program is one of the most exciting things that you can do on our campus. It's something that's really unique to Purdue University, and we're really happy to share with you tonight. I have a few of my friends here, current GEARE students and GEARE alums. I'll announce them, and they're going to talk a little bit later as we go in the program. So if they have their cameras on, they can just give us a wave. We have Anjali, we have Eleanor, we have Will, we have Beck, and we have Nick. And we'll have one more here just a few minutes. She had a last minute dose of the COVID vaccine that she was getting. Tess, who is another GEARE alum who we're going to hear from later. Also, my good friend and colleague Jenny's here as well, works in the office. So excited to talk to you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen now, and we have some slides that we're going to kind of go over. If you have some questions as we go through this, feel free to enter those in the chat. The folks who are not talking may be able to answer those chat questions, and we can also get to those as we get to the end of the session. So the Purdue GEARE program, this is the GEARE program stands for Global Engineering Alliance for Research and Education. And it is Purdue's premier global engineering training program. Before we get into like real specifics, I just want to give you an idea of where you can find more information about our program after the session. So we have our GEARE website. If you just go to www.opp.purdue.edu, from there you can look at our programs and find the GEARE program. If you're on the GEARE program site, we also have a student relevant site that our GEARE students keep up. They have a lot of really great information, contact information from past GEARE alums. They're really helping us build our network, advice from GEARE students. So really interesting content, a lot of highlights from different student experiences. We have a LinkedIn page on GEARE that you can follow. We post a lot of interesting things. We connect with companies through this. And then I think a lot of students probably more interested in the GEARE Instagram page. So you can find the GEARE Instagram page. You'll find a lot of pictures, see a lot of stories from GEARE students and hear about their experiences. So the GEARE program is Purdue's comprehensive global engineering training program. It's in fact the most comprehensive global engineering training program that you'll find anywhere. It offers students unique opportunities to have extended experiences overseas. A GEARE student will in total spend at least 8 months overseas, sometimes longer than that. You're going to have the opportunity to study abroad for an entire semester, and you're going to have the opportunity to work in an internship or do research abroad. This opportunity to have that work experience abroad as an engineer is something that's really unique. Not possible at many other institutions around the world. We do some interesting things that allow this to happen. So this is an interesting way to have a global experience and also help you move forward in getting professional experience to help you advance you in your career. So we've been running the program since 2003. We started just with universities in Germany and China, and then companies in those countries as well. We've since expanded. We're operating in 13, 14 different countries around the world. We're offering many foreign language opportunities for students to study and have many industry partners. Over 550 alums who we have a really strong network with, who give a lot of their time to come back and mentor students within the program. So it's pretty great opportunity. By the way, just want to make sure you guys can see the screen that I'm looking at, right? The slideshow. Great, thanks. Students who complete this program are going to earn a minor in global engineering studies. And we have 400 plus students in the program right now. Generally, students in the program are fairly highly achieving students. They average 3.6 GPA in the program. Within the program, you're going to do some of the following things. We're going to require students to do 12 credits of foreign language study. This generally occurs before the second semester of third year, which is where you're going to have the major international experience. You don't have to come to Purdue with any language experience to start out with. You can start taking courses with the intent of going abroad, or if you have foreign language experience, you can generally test into higher levels of a foreign language and reduce the number of credits that you need to, or the number of courses that you need to meet the requirement. However, a lot of students who do bring in a lot of foreign language credit generally try to go further on in their language. Many also try to get a minor in the foreign language. And at some of the upper levels, so say the 300 level of a language, we have some really interesting courses at Purdue, such as Spanish for engineering and technology, or we have a German for engineering and technology. So we get some really specific coursework that helps students engage in the engineering practice for that particular language. We do a lot of professional and cultural workshops that generally happen during the second year. We're recruiting, I should mention, we're recruiting students right in their first year. Second semester of first year is when most students join. We require students to do at least one domestic internship or research experience, generally happening during the summer after your second year. We require 3 1-credit global competency seminars. These are sandwiched around your international experience. So you take one prior to going abroad, where we help you prepare for that experience. You take one while you're abroad, where we help you maximize the experience. And then you take one when you get back, where we push you further in terms of your global competency development, and you act as a mentor for students. There's 1 semester of study abroad. We connect you with some of the most highly ranked engineering schools across the world. Many of the top engineering universities in particular countries are our partners. So you have an opportunity to study at those universities for at least 1 semester. And then you will do an international internship, which usually combines with that study abroad experience. Most students do that in the same country where they study abroad. That international internship can happen anywhere between 3 and 6 months. We have a global design team project requirement, and then we finish it with some poster presentations where you have the opportunity to talk about your experience in a whole to larger groups of students and people affiliated with the university. Each of our speakers is going to talk a little bit more about each of these kind of elements as we go on. Additional to this program, you might ask, where can I go? Program is generally based upon language, trying to send you to the countries that correspond with your foreign language. So if you're studying Chinese, thinking about going to China or Taiwan, we have connections in France. If you're studying French language, if you're studying German language, Germany and Switzerland. If you're studying Korean, we have South Korea, Japan for Japanese. If you're studying Spanish, Spain, Mexico, Colombia, or Ecuador, Italy for Italian, and Brazil for Portuguese. And in some occasions, there are possibilities that you can go someplace that doesn't correspond with your foreign language. That may happen in terms of if there's not great alignment with your academic study and a university partner in the country where your language is studied, or potentially if you're working with a company who has an opportunity for you abroad and a different study abroad destination might be more opportune. So sometimes we may send students to Singapore, Hong Kong, Sweden, UK, Denmark, or Ireland as well. You can see we have a distribution of students within the program, and every engineering discipline at Purdue University is represented with students participating in our program. So no matter what discipline of engineering you go into, you can have a chance to participate in the GEARE program. For those of you not necessarily familiar with the acronyms, ME is mechanical engineering, followed by aerospace and aeronautical, computer engineering, chemical, industrial, electrical, civil, biomed, biological, material science engineering, nuclear engineering, environmental and ecological engineering, agricultural engineering, and then multidisciplinary engineering. So a lot of different opportunities depending on what type of discipline of engineering you decide to study. We have in each discipline of engineering support for students. So GEARE coordinators, as we would call them. The GEARE coordinators help the students build their plan of study, understand what courses they can take while they're overseas, how those are going to transfer back to your studies, how those can help you stay on track for your path to graduation. We should say that the GEARE program is also a cost-neutral program. So we try pretty hard and are successful in making sure that when you do the GEARE program, it doesn't cost you more. So there is a registration fee when you do the internships and the internship courses, but you're getting paid during those time periods. Outside of that, when you do your study abroad, you're studying abroad at our exchange partners. At our exchange partners, you are paying your same tuition as if you were at Purdue. Your cost of room and board is in the country. However, you'll find that the room and board and cost of living in most places we're sending students is less than what you pay on campus to live at Purdue. During your international work experience, you might find that the pay for international internships is less than it may be here in the US. However, we are making sure that you are getting covered for your cost of living while doing that internship. And the big thing to realize is you're probably not going to make a lot of money on the international internship, but that is something that is going to set you apart. Very few engineering students will graduate with international work experience. And that is something that you'll hear from our speakers that immediately makes you interesting to employers as you're going through looking for jobs after graduation. And then we have a variety of grants and scholarships. Right now, many students who study abroad for a semester are eligible for a $2,000 to $5,000 grant from Purdue University. All GEARE students who are taking our intercultural course while abroad will receive a $2,000 grant for that course. And then we have other global living assistant grants for you if you're on a internship abroad and maybe you need more funding to cover your cost of living during that time period. We have a lot of industrial partners, companies like HP in Barcelona, Daimler, Eli Lilly, Airbus, even Tesla, now a partner of ours. These companies interested in hiring students for domestic opportunities with the plan to send them abroad. For example, Tesla interested in hiring students in the US and then sending them to their gigafactory in Berlin. We're trying to connect students with global companies for which they will have a domestic and an international opportunity. And in some cases, we are connecting that with other programs at Purdue, like our co-op program, which requires students to do at least 3 working experience in a whole year minimum of work experience. This gives you an example of Daimler, for example, who works with us hiring students multiple times. They have a plan to hire students for an opportunity with them in Detroit, then send them to Stuttgart in Germany, and then bring them back for an opportunity in Portland, Oregon, and perhaps another opportunity in the US before they graduate. You'll probably hear from Will in a minute, who can also attest to his company providing that type of opportunity for him as well. And then the final topic that I'll say before I pass it along to the more interesting speakers of the night is the thing that we do in the GEARE program that basically you won't find anywhere else, and that is our emphasis on intercultural training. We are trying to take students to make them, so when they graduate this program, They are going to be highly adept communicators. They're going to have the skills that are going to help them immediately advance in their companies. They're going to be skilled to be able to work anywhere in the world. And we believe that our students are going to be the CTOs and the CEOs of companies. If we're looking at this 10, 15 years down the line, I'm confident many of our graduates you will find at the highest levels of companies. And what we're doing in this program is we're doing a variety of things. This kind of gives you some idea about a coursework. So prior to going abroad, you're going to be matched up with a student who has been abroad to the place where you're going. That's going to help you prepare for that logistically. But we're also starting to look at areas of global competency. We're interested in doing activities that increase your own self-awareness, knowing who you are as an individual, why you make the decisions that you make, looking at your awareness of others. What are some of the major differences that you'll find within different cultures around the world? How do you manage your own emotions when you're in situations where you don't know exactly what's going on and you're going to find yourself in those situations when you're abroad? And how do you bridge cultural gaps when you identify those? So we're going to start taking a look at those. While you're abroad, we're going to maximize those experiences. You're going to have a mentor here at Purdue who you're going to work with as you go out and you experiment within the culture, talking and reflect upon some of the different experiences that you're having. And then when you get back, you are going to be a mentor to students who are preparing to go abroad. And we're going to use something called the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is a way that we can measure students' intercultural competence. This kind of gives you an idea. This is basically a measure of the way that you might think and that you might approach different situations. Our idea is to push students to these levels of acceptance and adaptation where you understand that in any given situation, any teamwork environment, you're going to be matched up with people who have different experiences than you, who think differently than you. You're going to be able to recognize those, and you're going to be able to adapt your own behavior to be most effective in those situations. And you can see that only about 16% of the population in general get to these areas. And just as a snapshot of how we're doing about this shows us our last cohort of GEARE students who grew from the time that they before they went abroad to the time that they came back by 17 points. This probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but in research that's out there, by global programs throughout the US, the average amount of growth is 5 points. So we're tripling that amount of growth within our program because of the training that we're doing. And then you can see how students' perspective, the way that they interacted with people, how that changed with our students advancing to these areas from they may have started in sort of developmental areas of denial or polarization. And we see after the experience, very few students still in those development ranges. A lot of students in minimization pushed up towards acceptance and adaptation, with nearly 55% of our students finishing where 16% of the general population is. So these are the things that we are pushing students to do within this program that makes it unique and that are going to make you really adept professionals after you graduate. So I'm going to end my part there, and I'm going to filter it over to Beck, and Beck's going to talk a little bit about his experience, specifically, I think, about his international study abroad experience.
Correct. Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. My name is Beck, and I'm in my last year of mechanical engineering. And I've completed my domestic and international work experiences with Eaton, both in the electrical division and in e-mobility in Germany. I studied abroad at one of the highly ranked universities in Germany, KIT, and I also held a research position while I was there. Um, my study abroad experience included also a global design project, which meant that 3 Purdue students would collaborate with 3 KIT students. That's when we worked on hybrid vehicle design, and we have scored one of the highest marks across all teams. Um, and To add to the study abroad experience, some people think they need to give up their Purdue semester, but that's actually wrong. You can actually continue to participate in Purdue related activities. So, for example, my teammates and I have continued to work on our startup here and have been placed in the top 5 in the accelerator program. While I was in Germany, they were here at Purdue, and some of our mentors were in California. Um, to answer some of the questions about study abroad, how does a long-term study abroad differ from a short-term experience? Um, in the way that it works in Germany, you take classes over the summer, but you do your internship in winter. So you spend there 8 months versus short term. Many people spend just 2 weeks. I also did a short term my freshman year, which helped me to adapt to the culture itself. And my courses were in English, but you can certainly take classes in German as well.
Beck, why? What do you think you gained out of having a longer term experience as compared to a shorter term experience?
Okay. I think connections is a big part of the GEARE program. Um, when you have just 2 weeks or short term duration study abroad in Germany or anywhere in the world, you don't have many opportunities to explore the country or the continent. While you have more time to do so, you can expect to be in different, you can be invited to different events throughout the year, which is very helpful to making professional connections. Thanks for your question, Joe.
Sounds good, Beck. We'll come back. We'll come back, and if anybody has questions for Beck, you can feel free to put those into the chat, and we'll answer those, or we'll come back to them later on. Next person we'll have talk is Will Gersner. He's going to talk a little bit about his internship experiences and maybe how the international internship experience might have been different than his U.S. experiences.
Yeah, so I'm Will Gersner. I'm the current president of the GEARE Ambassadors, and I did break a lot of the normal rules with the GEARE program. So I came in testing into German, but once I was able to get a position with my company, R.A. Jones, I ended up studying abroad in Spain and then working abroad in Bologna, Italy. Even getting the internship was something set up through the GEARE program. Every September before IR, which is the big job fair here at Purdue, GEARE runs their own recruitment event, and I got connected with R.A. Jones thanks to Joe. I was actually about to leave the conference for the evening, and Joe suggested that I make one last stop and talk to them, and that's where I've been working since then. So I'm now in my 5th year, and that was started in my sophomore year. So as part of that, working with them, I joined the co-op program. So I did my domestic internship for a total of 2 semesters in Covington, Kentucky. And then once I was abroad in Bologna, I did the international part. In the end, it was very, very fun to work in both places, because I got to, even now, like even in the latest semester, I got to work with my Italian coworkers, even once I came back to the US on a collaborative project, which is, just recently getting installed in the factory. So it was nice to get to see, the full development cycle of working with them. Of course, there does come some differences when you work with in a foreign country. So working in Italy, I was one of the few people in the office whose Italian wasn't their native language, and my Italian still probably isn't the greatest, but it was nice that we worked together. So I would still have, problems with Italian like they might have problems with English, and in the end that served as a bonding experience for solving problems. And then when we would work when we were working together on that project with the American people, it was a good way to use the skills we learned in the seminar classes to help facilitate good communication between the people in the US and the people in Italy. In the end, uh, my company really enjoyed how well I did that, and they've offered me a full-time position starting in July, where I'll be going back to Italy in large part because we have another project happening between the US and Italy, and they want me to make sure that the communication continues to go well between both sides. Uh, I really, really enjoyed my time in the GEARE program. I really highly recommend it to anyone wanting to do it. And I mean, clearly it set me up to continue well into the future.
Thanks, Will. If you have any questions for Will, feel free to enter those in the chat. We'll either respond or we can come back to it at the end. I'm gonna introduce next speaker, Anjali, who's gonna talk a little bit about her experience with global design team projects within the program.
I think I'm one of the few people that is speaking that has not had the opportunity to go abroad, but hopefully next spring I will be in Valencia, Spain for spring 2022. I am the current Vice President of Internal Affairs for the GEARE Ambassadors, and I had the opportunity to do a global design project this semester. And even though we are virtual, we were still able to collaborate with the ESPOL University in Ecuador, and we are currently working on the problem of water shortage in the Manglar Alto area in Ecuador. And it's really a whole new experience because I was able to even practice my Spanish with my team member, Daniela, because she is more comfortable speaking in Spanish. So even though I'm not as comfortable, we found a flow where she can sometimes practice her English with me and I'll practice my Spanish, and we'll both help each other get better with our languages. And it really is a new experience being able to work with people on the same problem, even though you come from such different perspectives. And I think I've grown to be more comfortable presenting in Spanish because we even presented to the water board management in the Manglar Alto area. So it was like really a new experience to be able to speak in Spanish in a professional setting. So I've definitely grown a lot in these few short weeks in this semester, and I can't wait to see what else I'll be able to learn before the semester ends.
Thanks, Anjali. And one thing to mention about global design team projects is this year was a little bit of a bummer for the GEARE program because of COVID. We didn't end up sending any of our students abroad, but the happy thing, we'll get back on, we will start sending students abroad again next year. And the happy sort of thing that happened for our program was we learned how to build very robust remote global design team projects with our partners abroad. And so this will become a very strong facet of our program. So students will not only learn how to work with people in person while overseas and learn how to live in different cultures, but they'll also learn how to work very effectively with people remotely as well. And so, in fact, we had 7 projects this semester going on with different university partners around the world. Starting in the fall, we will have even more projects available for students in the program. And we will start connecting those with companies. So companies like Daimler, their startup labs in Germany, like Siemens, they are providing us with projects, real life projects where they need solutions. And we will partner with our university partners abroad, put together global teams to solve these projects. And if we position it right, our students will do this during their sophomore year, connect with the companies, and then have an opportunity to do internships with those companies in the US and abroad. So we'll keep expanding our network and the effectiveness of the program because of what we were able to accomplish this year, and that's going to just strengthen the program as we go forward. And then next, I'm going to have Eleanor speak a little bit about even something newer that we also put together for the program this year because we couldn't send students abroad, and she'll discuss this a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name's Eleanor. I'm a senior in chemical engineering, and I'm also part of that awkward COVID class. So, I no longer have the opportunity to go abroad. I would have been at the University of Magdeburg in Germany, and I would have worked in Dresden with my co op company, Eastman Chemical. But COVID had different plans for that. So, the meaning of GEARE really changed for me, and it changed to center around the pillar of intercultural competency. So, in case you don't know what that means, intercultural competency is really your ability to adapt and change your behavior in a situation to whatever the culture is of the surrounding situation. So, GEAR does this and improves your intercultural competency in a couple ways. One of them uh, is through a course that is pretty new. It's called LC 490 and is a focus in humanities informed engineering projects. And I'm currently taking this course, and it's very interesting because essentially we examine case studies. So, for example, the flood barriers in Venice, Italy. And we look at this engineering project and we examine it from different cultural perspectives. So, we'll examine it from the perspective of native Venetians, we'll look at it from the tourists, from the Italian government, from environmentalists. So that way we can try and get a holistic picture on what's happening with that project and look at all angles that the engineering that you will be doing, how that impacts the stakeholders. So it's really just learning how culture and engineering work together, which is a very interesting concept. And another way we work on the intercultural competency of our students is through, and Joe previously mentioned this, we have a few cultural seminars called Engineering 297, 397, and 497. So this corresponds to you take one seminar before you go abroad, one during your study abroad, and then one after you've returned. And these courses are just really designed to give you and guide you through the intercultural experiences that are happening. By having discussions and talking about what you might not understand or just processing what you're experiencing in a foreign country can really help you develop your intercultural skills. So I'm currently taking the While Abroad class concurrently with the Humanity Informs Engineering projects and then a global design course. And even without the study abroad, although I miss it and I wish I could have gone on it, uh, through these courses, I'm still gaining and learning a lot. And I think it's really improving my skill set. And hopefully it'll continue throughout the rest of my education and onto my career. So.
Thanks a lot, Eleanor. And as you can see, I mean, key to our students is being able to adapt to different situations, and this being maybe a difficult situation that everybody's been adapting to. And I think Eleanor is a great example of how our students are meeting that challenge, and how we're still striving to improve our abilities to communicate and work more effectively with others. And the course LC 490 that Eleanor mentioned is going to be a consistent feature for students in our program, only enabling our students to keep increasing where they are in terms of their global competency. So we're going to move to, we have a couple of real special guest speakers. Unfortunately, the slide I noticed is kind of messed up, but our guest speakers are alums who have completed our program, now working in industry. You could talk a little bit about how their experience has impacted what they're doing right now. And so first I'm going to introduce Tess Mayer.
Hey guys, I'm Tess. I'm currently up in Schenectady, New York, which is a mouthful when you try to say it like 14 times fast. I just want to say like big snaps to all the other people that have spoken. Eleanor, I would love to hear more about that LC 490 class. It sounds very, very interesting. I am a COVID graduate, so I graduated in May 2020, and I currently work for GE Gas Power, and I'm a member of their Operations Management Leadership Program, which is a very fancy way of saying I work in supply chain, with a focus on people leading and developing as a leader. My big GEARE takeaways: one, I got paired with an amazing company, American Axle and Manufacturing, and they are a car parts component supplier for all of the big automotive companies you know and love: Ford, FCA, Daimler, even John Deere, Harley Davidson. So I worked with the metal forming group and got to work on some new forging technologies and get my hands dirty in like some true manufacturing engineering. With them, I got the opportunity to work in Valencia, Spain. My GEARE language was Spanish. And so I studied in Madrid and then I worked in Valencia, and it was absolutely wonderful. Spain is beautiful and I can talk about it for hours, but I don't want to waste your time with that. I would probably say that I might be the loudest, proudest GEARE advocate outside of GEARE. This opportunity to be a part of something so interculturally focused has been the pivotal part of like my career. And I knew just based from working in GEARE how interconnected the world is. A lot of people like fail to recognize that your components you buy aren't coming from the US most of the time. The things in your phone aren't coming from the US, even if it's a US company. And those companies need internationally minded people like all of the GEARE students to come and work for them to make better teams. And so I have extensive global experience, but I rave about my time with GEARE. It gave me the best opportunity to actually immerse myself in a culture as an adult that I could get to this point. And it gives you the opportunity to grow with like-minded people and just really immerse yourself in another culture, which is absolutely phenomenal and hard to find like this with an engineering focus. Some of the biggest things I would say that I took away from the GEARE program are like the interpersonal skills. You do a lot of talking and sitting and speaking with people, and that really develops you as a person. And you have no shortage of leadership opportunities in GEARE. They're always looking for people to volunteer for events, be on the board, etc. Another big one was actually the IDI that Joe mentioned, the Intercultural Development Index. It was really cool. You go in thinking that you know where you're going to fall on the scale, and you really don't know until you have it numerically sitting in front of you saying black and white, this is where you fall culturally with your awareness. And so that was just one of the coolest things that you gain in your awareness, your opportunities. And I guess my biggest piece of advice is get as involved as you can be, whether that be with GEARE, whether it be with other organizations internationally. When you are there, find opportunities to volunteer or get involved with projects on your international sites. That's my biggest piece of advice. You'll grow so much from the opportunities you have when you are involved. Plus, you'll get more opportunities to come back and get to be parts of these things, pouring in knowledge and information to other people as they see fit.
Thanks a lot, Tess. Really great to see you tonight too.
It's good to see all of you guys. I've missed your faces.
And the last person I'm going to introduce, Nick, is a GEARE alum from several years ago now, but I think Nick probably has more global experience than just about anybody I've met. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me okay? Good. Yeah, so as Joe said, my name is Nick Chopla, and I actually graduated from Purdue, quite a while ago now. In 2013, I graduated with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then actually stuck around and did my master's in mechanical engineering. and finished in 2016. Currently, I work for ExxonMobil Oil Corporation in Chicago, Illinois. And one thing that I'm here to talk about is really what I've done because of GEARE. And for example, with my current employer, ExxonMobil, they don't really interview people who have less than a 3.7 GPA, 3.5 GPA. That's kind of the barrier to enter, right? So really what they're looking at is, you're interviewing with a bunch of people who have very high GPAs, and you need to set yourself apart. And when I interviewed with them, they actually had someone from Mexico interviewed me. And he interviewed me in Spanish just because he saw that I could speak Spanish on my resume, that I spent some time in Latin America. And, they really wanted to know what I had done with my global experiences. And that's really all they really wanted to talk about. A lot of my colleagues that I currently work with at ExxonMobil, they come from Mexico, they come from Canada. I have managers from Germany. Our North American sales manager is from Argentina, and he's worked in over 70 different countries. So these are the types of colleagues and engineers that large corporations are looking for. My particular GEARE experience, so I did GEARE in Germany, just like Beck. I studied at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. And while I was over in Germany, this was my first time abroad. I fell in love with traveling and actually used my time there to network a position in Russia. I did research with a thermodynamics professor in Siberia, Russia. You can see the one picture I have there of the snow. That was a view of my walk to class or to work with the professor. And then when I came back to Purdue after my GEARE experience in Russia, I actually had the opportunity to interview with Mercedes-Benz. They were looking for GEARE students who had been to Germany. And yeah, they wanted someone who could speak German. So I started to intern with Mercedes-Benz. I worked for them in Alabama. And then they actually sent me over to their headquarters in Stuttgart, Germany. And while I was over there, I actually used my time to network a third internship with Mercedes-Benz in South Africa, at their East London, South Africa location. At that time, I came back to do my master's at Purdue, and a really nice opportunity fell. And Joe, he asked me to go to India to help represent the GEARE program and grow their program in India. And while I was in India, or actually when I came back, my professor at the time, who started to help start the GEARE program, Eckhard Grohl, he helped me set up a project in Brazil. And I spent 7 months working with a professor in Brazil. And as Joe said earlier in the presentation, Brazil is actually one of the countries that GEARE is starting a partnership with. And I went there to help start that partnership in Brazil. So 6 years at Purdue, studied abroad 6 different times, really motivated me to travel. Ended up doing a real nice backpacking trip for about 15 months after my experience in Brazil. Traveled about 15 different countries or so, from Brazil up to Mexico. And one thing I really want to leave you guys with is, this is what I talk about in my interviews. This is what people know me for in my company. A company of 70,000 people who have, we have sites all over the world, in Singapore, in Latin America, in Europe, in Africa. ExxonMobil is a huge corporation, and a lot of people know me as the guy who's traveled all over the world, and they have for sure told me that this is going to open up opportunities in my future. So just want to let you guys know, because of GEARE, you have so many different opportunities. And if you do go to Purdue and join the GEARE program, take the time and really take advantage of the opportunities.
Thanks a lot, Nick. So that kind of concludes many of the things we wanted to tell you about the GEARE program. We hope that gives you a pretty good overall synopsis of what the program has to offer, and can open it up for questions. If you want to send a question through the chat, go ahead, feel free. If you want to unmute and just ask the question, do that as well. how fluent do you have to be in the foreign language? So I think we'll have various aspects of this about how good everybody spoke their foreign language. Let's maybe hear from them. Tess, how good were you in Spanish?
I will go ahead. I'm decently good at Spanish, but I will admit that the company I worked for, all of the employees didn't care how good or bad my grammar was. They just cared that I tried. And one of the most impactful things they mentioned to me as I was leaving there actually was that I was the only American who had come into their factory, which is an American company, and attempted to speak to them in their native tongue. And so that was what, like, they don't mind if you mess up your words or if you need to ask questions for help. I have a 40-page handwritten dictionary of words I learned while I was studying and working in Spain. So you don't need to be fluent by any means. You just, like, taking the classes that you end up taking to get to the competency level for GEARE really sets you apart from other Americans or other international students in those situations. And you don't need to be fluent, just give it a shot, and they appreciate it and they'll work with you. You end up learning so much while you're there.
Yeah, and I would echo. So our goal is for students to be able to hold a basic conversation before they go. That is basically the intermediate requirement that we have. Mostly at the university partners where students go, there's options to take the technical courses in English. So we're trying to develop those options. The foreign language, I think, comes in better at the work sites. And as Tess kind of mentioned, I think the better that you speak the foreign language and the more effort that you put into it, the farther you'll get, the more opportunities you'll get, the more people that you'll get to know, and the better experience that you'll have overall.
I would also like to add something. When you're going abroad, people will try to talk to you in English to practice their foreign language skills. So for them, it would be English. But as a new language learner, you have to persevere and try to connect with your colleagues or your new friends in the new language. So you have practice time accumulated throughout your study abroad or internship.
And just to round it out, I guess I would say, even though like German was my language, I'd say I'm pretty fluent in German. And then I ended up going to Italy. Even though my coworkers would, like Beck said, try to speak to me in English, they really appreciated that at least I could sit through an Italian meeting and know what was going on. And now, since I'm planning to go back, they're the ones coming to me and saying, well, this time you better learn it right. But they still, they did appreciate that I would at least try. And I think that was, what mattered to them the most.
I think Nick can probably speak to foreign language too, probably helping with some interpersonal relationships as well,
huh? Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I echo all the comments that have been said so far. I think if you have a basic idea or understanding of the language, you're not expected to have to speak it perfectly. I did internships in German, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and I'm fluent in all of them now, but I wasn't in the beginning. And like I said, if you make mistakes, they also want to learn English, and it's a real nice, back and forth, and it's a cultural exchange. Learning how to, deal with technical issues or solve problems in another language with another person is really an awesome experience, and will help you grow personally and professionally.
Thanks. The next question, does the co-op program and GEARE work hand in hand? And if so, how does it work? And the answer to that is basically yes. It's because the GEARE program is run out of our Office of Professional Practice, the same office that runs the co-op program. So we are connected with many of our co-op companies. And so many of those co-op companies are interested in expanding their model to have an international rotation within the co-op program. And I think Will can speak to that probably as well.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely not originally thinking about doing a co-op, but when my company suggested it to me, and it ended up working into my plan of study, it really seemed like it made a lot of sense. So I didn't have to change anything to make it fit into my plan of study. It just became my summer internships. And I guess, so I did, during my time abroad, I ended up extending my normal 3-month internship into a 6-month one so I could have an extra rotation doing that. But the program, works really well together with GEARE. So in the end, I know for me and some of the people who went to HP, they would, do a whole year abroad. So the study abroad followed by like a 2-semester internship. And a lot of the co-op companies are interested in doing that abroad. But it definitely is something that can work together.
And I would say in general, the more commitment that you may have with a company, if you work with them multiple times before you go abroad, those companies are more interested in investing in you and that international experience. So having really good connections with them prior helps you with that international experience as well. How do current freshman students apply for the program? We have a call out generally in January of the second semester of freshman year. And we talk about how to apply for the program. You have to complete your first semester with a 3.0 or higher. That's sort of the major requirement. And then you have to be open and willing to study foreign languages. There's an essay that you have to write. And we're looking for really flexible people who are willing to say yes a lot and adventure into different types of opportunities. So that's kind of what we're looking for in the program. Definitely rotations can be done internationally and domestically. That's part of our goal and what we talk a lot about to different companies. The GEARE timeline is extremely flexible. As Will was mentioning, we built the GEARE program to be completed in 4 years. About 50% of our students complete it in 4 years. The other 50% take longer. And that's not because they fall behind in their studies or anything like that. It's usually because they do longer international experiences or they do more work experiences through co-op. What's that? Difficulty in getting accepted into the GEARE program. The biggest difficulty is that 3.0 GPA requirement. I would say if you are open-minded, you're flexible, you're willing to learn a second language, we want you in the program. If you're in the program where you automatically get a global engineering studies minor, no, you have to complete certain components of the program, most of the program, in order to earn that minor. And so basically, hopefully upon completing the ENGR 497 course your senior year, you've completed all the components, and we guide you through that process. Oh, good. I'm answering questions you guys already answered. So,
no one was going to tell you, Joe. We wanted to see how long it took you to figure it out.
So any other questions that anybody else wants to ask? Go ahead. We'll stick around here for a couple minutes. If not, feel free to take off. We thank you for joining.
All right, thanks guys. I have to go run to the ultimate Frisbee game. I have a question before I go. Well, this is unrelated to the GEARE program, Eric, but